Hey guys, what is up? It's Duncan, and today I'm here with an Android showdown that's been over a year and a half in the making. I'm going to be comparing the absolute best Android phones that you can buy on the market today. I'm going to go over four of them. I'm going to go over the Motorola Devour, I'm going to go over the HTC Droid Eris, the Motorola Droid, and of course, the Google Nexus One. I'm going to go over all four of these major Android smartphones. I'm going to tell you guys about the prices, the features, what version they're running, and special little things about them. I'm going to go over it all and tell you guys what I think. Anyway, let's get this one started. Okay, so let's begin with the Motorola Devour. This is the newest Android phone. It has just come out for Verizon Wireless, and really, to sum it up in just one sentence, it's like a aluminum, smaller Motorola Droid. It's like that. One of the major differences is that it's a little bit of a lower spec phone. Instead of running full Android 2.0, it actually runs 1.6. But there is a reason for that. It actually has the Moto Blur interface. Now, if you don't know what the Moto Blur interface is, it's Motorola's special skinned version of Android. So basically, it runs Android, but on top of it, you'll see a lot of different things, such as like status updates for all kinds of social networking, and a lot of different, custom touches. Unlike something like the Droid or the Nexus One, both of which just run stock Android, you'll get the phone, but it might take a while for them to get updates, if you get updates at all. But that said, the Moto Blur interface has some pretty nice things, and for a lot of people it's pretty handy. The Motorola Devour does run on some lower specs than the Droid. It's got a similar form factor with the slide-out keyboard, but it runs a slower processor, less RAM, and a worse camera, as well as a 3.1-inch touchscreen, which is smaller than the 3.7-inch that you will find on the Droid. Now, it's not meant as something the next version of the Droid. It's meant more as like a scale-back, smaller version, and that's okay. But the problem is, there's really not a whole lot of reason to buy it. Compared to the Droid, they both, technically, if you look at Verizon at the stores, the prices are different, but generally on the, a normal price like on Amazon that you buy it, both of them are $50 with a 2-year contract at Verizon. So between the two, it's kind of hard to, pick the Devour when you've got the Droid. But, if you really do like the Moto Blur interface, it's still a pretty decent phone, especially for $50. So you might want to take a look at it. Okay. So the next Android smartphone we're going to cover is going to be the HTC Droid Eris from Verizon Wireless. Now, right off the bat, I've got to mention that this is kind of one of like the older generation of Android smartphones. If you know the HTC Hero, that came out last summer, I believe. That was the cutting-edge Android smartphone you could get back then. Well, this is basically a very similar version of it. They've just basically reworked the shell. It looks a little bit different, and it obviously runs on Verizon Wireless. So if you know the Hero, you're going to know that this is very similar. It runs Android 1.5, which is a pretty old version of Android. You are missing a few features, but it does come with the custom HTC Sense interface. I gotta admit, just speaking from personal preference, I really like the HTC Sense interface. It really looks good. It looks very modern. You have the clock. You're able to run a lot of different programs, such as like a customizable interface, like social networking, all kinds of stuff, and it's totally customizable, which is pretty cool. Of course, one of the really most important things about this phone is the price. It is free on a 2-year contract from Verizon. That's unheard of. This is the very first Android smartphone that is actually being offered for free. And that's pretty good, considering that, if you look at this compared to, like some little flip phone or something, I mean, this is going to win by a mile. So that alone really just puts it in the league by itself. Of course, if you look at it compared to the Nexus One, which is probably the closest phone similar to it, because both of them do not have physical keyboards, then, the Nexus One is going to, totally blow it away. It's faster, newer, sleeker, all that kind of stuff. But the Nexus One runs you almost $200, whereas this is free. And I know that's a pretty major factor. So that by itself really puts the HTC Droid Eris, does really good job. So if you're looking for a cheap, basically free Android smartphone, you cannot go wrong with the HTC Droid Eris.
Okay.
So the third Android smartphone that I will be covering today has got to be the Motorola Droid. The Motorola Droid, I'm sure, is really one of the major phones that pushed Android into, everyone knowing about it. Before it was just like iPhone and BlackBerry, and there's this thing called Android. Well, then all of a sudden Verizon spent like millions and millions of dollars on all these really cool ads like Droid does and all that kind of stuff, and suddenly really Android's taken off. So obviously the Motorola Droid is a really solid phone, and it's really taken off. If you look at it, it's a pretty thin device. It's almost thinner than the iPhone, I believe. And it sports a 3.7-inch capacitive multi-touch screen, as well as, if you flip it out, a full keyboard underneath. The keyboard is not actually amazing. It's okay, but it can kind of be a little flat and not that great. But if you like, obviously a lot of people, myself included, prefer a actual hardware keyboard. So if you're looking for a hardware keyboard, that's great, and it works pretty decent. Now, one of the major things, especially when it was first released, was the fact that it ran Android 2.0, which brought over a lot of new features. That's still the case. It has not gotten updated as of yet, although it will be updated soon. And the main reason is that it does not run any kind of custom Android skin or anything like that, which would cause the updates to come slowly. Pretty much as soon as an update comes out, you can get it on the Droid fairly quickly. So I would definitely expect that you will see the Droid being updated constantly for quite a while to come. The Droid is a really, really good phone. I've got to admit, it's probably one of, if not the absolute best phone, in my opinion, on the market today. The one big deal about it, though, right now, is it is actually down to $50 as a 2-year contract, also from Verizon Wireless. And for $50, this is a lot of phone. I know the iPhone, and I know you also have the Nexus One. Those three, as well as the Palm Pre Plus. All 4 of those phones are really solid, but the Droid gives you something that really none of them can really put together. It's got the great combination of Android, a really nice sized, high resolution screen, and a really good keyboard. So put it all together, and the Droid is a really solid package. So lastly, but certainly not least, we have the Google Nexus One, which is built by HTC, but that's a different story. The Nexus One really is the top Android smartphone right now. Now, the Droid is great, don't get me wrong, but the Nexus One really just steps up a notch. It runs the latest version of Android, 2.1, but it also has a lot of really killer features. It's very, very, very thin, quite a bit thinner than the iPhone. It has a full 3.7-inch color multi-touch touchscreen, the whole works, and it's running at a very, very high resolution. So the screen on it just looks excellent. But probably the biggest deal about the Nexus One is the fact that it runs a Snapdragon processor. The Snapdragon is a very, very, very fast processor, running close to 2 times faster than a lot of others. So for it to be running like that, the Nexus One is very snappy, and it really moves really fast. So that alone really puts the Nexus One very high. But it's just a very good-looking device too, and the fact that it runs the newest version of Android, and it just put it all together, and it is the top Android phone right now. So it's hard to argue with it. It does run on T-Mobile at the moment, and it will be $180 if you are a new T-Mobile customer with a 2-year contract. You can also buy it unlocked for, I believe, a little bit less than $600. But if I were you, if you don't like T-Mobile, it will be coming to Verizon here sometime in the spring. So if you like Verizon, you should be able to pick it up. As well as AT&T should be coming. So pretty much if you want the Nexus One, before long you should be able to get it on 3 of the 4 main carriers. So that's a pretty good deal, and so you should be good with the Nexus One. So that is the Android smartphone showdown. There's 4 really good phones, and you could pick any of them if you wanted to. But in my opinion, it really comes down to 3. The Droid Eris is great, and it's free. Okay, you just can't understate that. It's a great deal, and it's a really solid phone. The Droid is only $50, and if you really need a keyboard and you want a solid phone, you've got to put it high on your list. If the keyboard doesn't matter to you too much, and you don't mind either waiting a little while for it to come out on Verizon, or going ahead and picking it up on T-Mobile right now, it will run you $180, but the Nexus One is absolutely a very, very solid phone, and it's really the cutting edge right now. So really, it pretty much comes down to what you think. To be honest, I like I like them all really, but it's pretty much all down to you. So whatever Android smartphone you want, it's really hard to go wrong. Anyway, thanks for watching.